girls that go into the STEM majors, a lot of them drop out in college because they look around the classroom and it's mostly men and they switch majors. And if they don't switch there, they're going to go into corporate, they're going to get their job, and they're going to look around and they're not going to see a lot of women. So then they leave the STEM professions.
Welcome to Your Creative Mind. I'm Izolda Trachtenberg, and this podcast is all about using your innate creativity and mindfulness to build a life you love. Whether it's through writing, music, dance, theater, or any creative pursuit, we'll explore how to tap into your unique potential to transform your work, relationships, and daily life. Through inspiring conversations with world-changing artists, entrepreneurs, and innovators, or actionable insights in my solo episodes, you'll learn how to focus your energy, ignite your creativity, and bring more joy and purpose to everything you do. Hey there, and welcome to the Your Creative Mind podcast. I'm your host, Izolda Trachtenberg. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here. I'm so thrilled to welcome this week's guest. Let me tell you about Gayle Keller. Gayle is a trailblazer in the world of STEAM, and if you know anything about me, you know how much I love STEAM, or as I call it, STREAM, which adds reading into the mix. Gayle is the CEO of Theodora S.T.E.A.M Girls and the author of Full Steam Ahead, where she empowers women and girls to break through barriers in science, tech, engineering, arts, and math. Gayle has spent over 20 years in tech building her 5-pillar superpower methodology that helps women take calculated risks and thrive in their STEAM careers, which is fabulous for me. Again, if you know anything about me, you know I worked at NASA for many years, so this is right up my alley. I'm super excited to talk to Gayle. If you've ever felt like your ambitions in your life don't always align, this episode's going to give you actionable insights and inspiration to create the balance and success you've been striving for at any age. Thank you so much for joining us, Gayle. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here today speaking with you, Izolda.
I am thrilled to pieces to have you here. As I mentioned when I was introducing you, I worked at NASA for many years, and I'm an artist. I'm a musician and a composer and a writer. And so I particularly adore what you're doing. I would love to sort of talk to you a little bit, jumping right on in, about this sort of gender gap that we have in STEM and STEAM. And you've taken that and you've focused it into a specific methodology, and you focused it with starting girls young with Theodora and the dolls. Tell me, what is the core idea of your approach and why it's so effective?
The core idea is somewhere between adolescence and adulthood, girls' confidence and courage dims. Now, I'm not a doctor. I think I know why it happens, but to me, it's sad. It happened to me when I was little, and I'm a mom to 2 young girls. And so I'm probably hyper focused on courage and confidence as superpowers with my girls, because with those 2 superpowers, you can be fearless. You can be a trailblazer. You can take leaps and try things out. Even if it doesn't work out, just the A for effort, counts a lot in this world. And so I spent over 20 years in the tech industry, and women are the underdog. And I had my own challenges, rose above those challenges, and thought, now that I'm a mom, I pressed pause on my corporate career. How can I still keep a pulse on the industry, but yet give back to women and girls? So I wrote a book for women called Full Steam Ahead. And it's triumphant tales for working women to overcome adversity, fear, and self-doubt. And as I was writing that book, it struck me like lightning one day. And I thought, why only service women? Why not bookend my brand and reach girls? Now, being a girl mom, seeing, the disparities in all of STEM, like you mentioned a couple minutes ago, it's not just in technology, it's not just in science, it's all of STEM. Mm-hmm. Now, like you, I was an A that went into T. So I was a journalism major, and then I went into technology. And it was important to me, with bookending the brand with the girls, the dolls, to honor my daughters. So 2 of the names are named after my daughters. So it's very important for me to let them not only have, their names recognized, their superpowers recognized, but to have a play in the business, to understand how, You rub two nickels to make a quarter, if you will. And, the importance of a strong work ethic from a young age. And so from this adult book that I mentioned, Full Steam Ahead, there's 5 characters, and they each go through their own struggles within the workplace. Anything from workplace bullying to sexual harassment to
Mm.
just not having any courage and confidence, not knowing how to get to point A to point B. And so there are 5 letters in STEAM. There's 5 characters in my book, and there's 5 dolls. So you have Scylla the scientist, Tyreka the techie, Elaine the engineer, Antonia the artist, and Malika the mathlete. They each have their own superpower, being courage, confidence, decisiveness, balance, and so on. And they each have an ethnic background, and they have a favorite color, and they go on adventures. And so each doll comes with an 8-page sticker book, and the activities are indigenous to the industry that the girl represents. Separately from that, there's an accompanying children's book series. So each doll goes on her own adventure to save the day. And then the 6th book is where they come together as a team. Because whether you're in the classroom or the boardroom, you're always going to have to work in a team. And you're not always going to like and or get along with your teammates, but you have to put the personalities aside and forge ahead, but yet honor the personalities and the unique superpowers that bring a team together to make it work well. Because someone's strength might be your weakness, and you always want to team up with them, not shun them away, and vice versa. If you have a strength, maybe, you work with the person with the weakness in this area, and boom, you have some powerful team that can forge ahead, trailblaze, exceed expectations, follow your dreams, and have a fulfilled heart.
And mic drop. Thank you so much for joining us. That was all that we needed to hear. Wow, that was amazing. Yeah, you know what's really fascinating to me about that, about everything you just said, is this notion of community, right? These dolls and these girls and women that you're talking about, we do have different strengths. Some of us are weak in one way, some have challenges in another way, some are really strong in another way. And yet what you're advocating, or at least what I'm hearing that you're advocating for, is real community building where women and girls support each other. And there's a wonderful West African proverb that I just love, and it goes like this: if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that notion right there of what you just said, that women from different walks of life, from different places in their lives, can come together and sort of work together to make things better and to exceed not even other people's expectations, but their own. Let me ask you something. Within your own community, can you talk about an unexpected moment that led to this profound change in how you approach empowering women?
Sure. So becoming a girl mom, I always thought I'd be a boy mom. We never found out the genders of our girls until they were birthed into this world. And so, I didn't get the last laugh there. And I thought, huh, okay, God gave me 2 girls for a reason, because being a girl, being a woman in this world is hard. And I've had my own struggles. And so I'm well equipped. I've got the tools in my toolbox. Hopefully, all of them, probably not all of them, right? Life throws you curveballs, but I've got a lot of them in my toolbox that I can help with them. I'm not going to do things for my girls, but if I can help them along in their journey to get to point A to point B, I will. And so the hardest thing was leaving corporate
Mm,
America, pulling that parachute, right? Having a steady income, etc. Now, I knew it was now or never. It was coming out of COVID. It was sort of like the latter part of COVID. So COVID wasn't the reason why I left. The pandemic wasn't the reason why I left. It was being a girl mom saying, now's the time to capitalize on this opportunity. If it doesn't work out, I pivot. If it doesn't work out, I go back to corporate.
mm,
So I say that I didn't leave corporate America. I say I pressed pause on my corporate career because, I didn't burn any bridges. I still love it. I still miss it. But this is what I'm doing in this season of life to not only fulfill my hearts, but to help other women succeed, to help other girls succeed. And the whole goal is to uplift young girls, women, and erase any fears or negative thinking patterns and replace them with positive thinking patterns. That glass is half full, it's not half empty. That's sort of how I was raised. You can have a bad day, you can have something bad happen to you, and you can be upset, but don't stay in that place. Don't stay in that sad, dark, helpless place for too long. Find beauty in the ashes when you pick yourself up and you dust yourself off and you try again. And if you try again and try again and it doesn't work, well, maybe you have to try it differently or give up altogether and move on to the next thing with a positive mindset, with a growth mindset. And so, kind of taking all that together, I just felt this calling that I couldn't describe.
Mm.
Like I said, when it hit me like lightning when I was writing my adult book to also reach young girls, I thought, this is a moment. This is what we're not doing in the world. And
Mm-hmm.
Gina Davis says it best. If we can't see it, we can't become it. And that really struck a nerve with me. It said, you know, if you bring different people together, diversity, different cultures, different likes, different dislikes, it's so important to mesh that together to come up with that community that works for you.
First, I love Gina Davis, and I love that she talks about this so much. It's fascinating to me as I'm listening to you. This thing that you said earlier on about at some point girls start receiving a message that they can't or they shouldn't or they're not good enough. And it seems to me that the dolls, for example, and the books are sort of standing in the face of that, right? They're going, no, no, no. If you want to be an artist, you can be an artist. If you want to be a mathematician, you can be a mathematician. And I know you with STEAM, it's science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And so those are the careers these dolls have. But talk to me, if you would, about that, about your thoughts about how those dolls can impact the girls that might read the books or have the dolls. Like, what is the psychology that maybe you're trying to affect as
Mm.
you have girls get in touch with these dolls or read the books?
Sure. And so that moment is when I was studying all of STEM and women being the underdog. I studied the corporate ladder and the rungs that were broken. And the ones that we hear about are always the ones when, women want to become mothers and they get older, but you don't hear about rungs 1 and 2. And really, there's more men in that pool than women. So out of the gate, women have that disadvantage just by the nature of numbers.
Mm.
It has nothing to do with, oh, men are smarter, men are better, etc. Just the numbers. So I peeled back the layers, started studying, and said, females that go into the STEM majors, a lot of them drop out in college because they look around the classroom and it's mostly men, and
Mm-hmm.
they switch majors. And if they don't switch there, they're going to go into corporate, they're going to get their job, and they're going to look around, and they're not going to see a lot of women. So then they leave the STEM professions. And so it really was interesting to me. I thought, okay, if this is happening in college, it has to be starting much earlier. So I started studying, and I thought, if I come up with these dolls, they're 15-inch plus plush dolls, I could get and capture the 3+ age bracket.
Mm.
Get very young girls that don't know how to read yet interested, right? Most girls like dolls. I'm not saying all girls, but if I could have a doll with a purpose and give that to my daughter versus just a Barbie doll, which there's nothing wrong with Barbie, and I love fashion to this day, but these have a specific purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more of the intelligence factor that tugs at your heartstrings and gives you that courage and confidence. And then I said, okay, if I can capture the 3+ age bracket, let's get into first grade. Let's get into that 6, 7-year-old's mind with the children's books. And even if the kids can't read yet, they're too little, the parents can read at bedtime the stories. And to me, it was going on an adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Paw Patrol for girls, if you will, is what I was thinking about because we love Paw Patrol in this house. And I thought, okay, if I can have the 5 girls save the day, this would be pretty cool. And they each get their own limelight in their own book. But that 6th one, they bring all 5 superpowers together and save the day in that 6th book. And so I thought that would reach. Now, I thought it would end at age 9. I have 4th graders wanting these dolls because they love the empowerment message.
Hmm.
They love the adventure. And so, just like anybody else, right? I need to be found. So, I'm working on my marketing and my PR and all of that. But if you go to theodoragirls.com, you can learn more about each doll, her superpower, and the adventure she embarks upon. So, and then coaching women in terms of their career reinventions, their pivots. I'm also working with girls as well. That teenage high school years where, okay, not only where am I going to college, what sports am I going to play, but who am I? Where do I want to grow from here? Who do I think I want to be when I grow up? And kind of working through some of those pain points.
You know, it's fascinating in listening to you. I do similar work in that I do workshops, sort of leadership workshops, especially with teenagers. And what you said earlier about courage and confidence really struck me because one of the things that I feel is so critical for young people is that they feel they have agency. Now, some of that is we give it to them as the adults who've gone before them, but some of that has to be, as you put it, that empowerment piece. So, as you're working with even the teenagers, the younger kids I get with the dolls and the sort of early grade books, but as you're working with the teenagers, especially when there's so much messaging for teenagers to be more concerned with other things than their own power, what kind of messaging do you give them when you're working with them, when you're writing to that age range? To help them feel like they can even take the first step when the odds are really stacked against them.
Yes, and I remember being in their shoes, and people older than me at the time when I was younger would say, "Oh, this too shall pass," or "This won't
Mm,
matter in a few years," and it's true. Both of those are true. But in that moment, how do I know that it doesn't matter in the scheme of life? This is my life. I'm 13, I'm 18 years old. This is a big, big deal in my life. Now, when I'm 45, it probably won't be a big deal, right? But it is in that moment.
mm,
And this too shall pass. Well, shoot, if it passes and it comes up again, what tools in my toolbox do I have? And how do I know which one to pull out if I do have it? And when to use it to combat it, to zap it there and forge ahead. And so it's kind of working through personal strengths and equipping the girls with the right tools at the right moments, going through, some exercises, if you will, or specific examples that have happened to them. So that's really important to see. Yes, you'll overcome it as you get older. Yes, little kids, little problems, big kids, big problems. Absolutely. But when you're a little kid with a problem, that's a big problem because that's all you know. And so honoring that is really important. Kind of getting not down to the level, but you know what I'm trying to say there is
mhm,
is reaching them at the level that they're at
mhm,
and
mhm.
helping them overcome it.
I mean, to me, in listening to that, I'm going, meeting someone where they are is really sort of and speaking to them in a way that they can understand is really the key. Because if you're talking over them or you're talking through them instead of talking with them, you're not going to get that kind of connection. And I totally get it. And yet, we've both worked in tech. We're both artistic. You in one way with the journalism, me in the other way with creative writing and music. There were all these moments in my life when I was working at NASA and before that the National Geographic Society that sort of, and I worked in education when I worked for both of those, and they were always about how do I take these moments of pure win when you get to be on the cutting edge, if you will, of tech or of science. How do I translate that? So I would love to ask you, when you reflect on your years in tech, what stands out as something meaningful like that? And how did that experience shape your work with Theodora STEAM Girls and with the books that you're writing?
One word, failure. In order to succeed, you must fail. In order to learn how to do better the next time, you must fail. In order to have experience, you have to have failure. And failure is a good thing because if you've never failed in your life, you've never tried.
Mm.
You've never taken a risk. And women compared to men are less they're risk averse. They're
Hmm.
less willing to take a risk. And I looked at myself and I've always been willing to take a risk. Now, you'll never see me jump out of an airplane. That terrifies me unless it's going down. So I'm not talking about that kind of risk, but risk, trying. What's the worst that's going to happen? It didn't work. What's the best thing I'm going to learn from when it didn't work? Perhaps I know why. I'll learn why it didn't work, or I'll know how to do it better the next time.
Hmm.
And so, in sales, you make a salary plus commission. And so, you gotta stay focused, your eye on the prize. And I was about to win the largest contract in my career history. And it was looking pretty good, this deal, this opportunity. Yes, I was part of a team, but it didn't happen. I lost. And
Mm.
like like the second in command to Microsoft knew about this deal. And so when it didn't happen, not only did my pocketbook hurt, but I felt like a failure. And I took a few days and I groveled,
Mm.
but I rose from the ashes. And I said, there's things I would have done differently. There's things I will do differently. And it's going to be okay. I didn't lose my job. I explained, things that happened, and I took my ownership in the part that didn't work out. And the second in command had me on her podcast for all the internal salespeople, and it was like 7,000 people. And they tuned in, and she wanted me to talk about failure. And at
Mm.
first, I thought, why would I go on your podcast and talk about failure? I mean, ouch, this is like, a sword in my side. And I thought, well, when the second in command calls, third in command calls, you can't say no. So I said yes, and I went on. And the amount of people that reached out to me after that podcast, they said, we don't talk about failure. And I learned
Mm.
so much from you. I thought, not only did I learn about myself and about the opportunity, but I paid it forward. And I helped others. And more people talk about failure now. And she said, I'll have you on my podcast when you have a win. And I thought, oh, that's very kind. You're very busy. She wouldn't remember. And like 6 months later, I had a big win, a big name. And she had me go in Las Vegas in front of 10,000 people and be a part of her core note to talk about the win, but also to talk about the failure of the loss that I had and how I pivoted and what I applied differently to get the win this time around. And so it came full circle, and it was so not only enlightening for me and empowering for me to be there, and a little nerve-wracking, right? Being in this arena.
Sure.
But I flew home from Vegas to Chicago and I cried the entire flight. Now, I was pregnant with my second, so the hormones were kicking in. But it was that moment that I realized that I was called to be doing something else.
Mm.
And I had to listen to that calling. And here we are.
That's fantastic. Actually, I'll show you when we're done recording. We're back on camera. I have a little plaque that says "Make marvelous mistakes," and that's really what it's all about for me. So I appreciate so much what you were saying, and yet, truthfully and honestly, like there is to me this notion of failure. You take the lessons and you apply them to the next time. And the next time when you win, it kind of ends up being a sine wave. There are times you lose, there are times you win. But the question is, what do I want to do differently next time? And so that ability to dream, to go, okay, I want to keep striving, I want to keep trying. Often that gets beat out of women and girls. And I don't mean literally necessarily. I'm talking about metaphorically, but that notion, and I know you refer to it as the dream gap. Can you talk a little bit about that notion of the dreams we as women especially and girls have and what happens to it and also what happens to that level of dreaming, that level of imagining what if as we go out into school and as we go out into the working world.
Yeah, we hear all about the dream gap, or sorry, we hear about the gender gap all the time. And
Hmm.
so it really stems from the dream gap. And that dream gap is, well, I want to be a doctor. I want to be, a construction worker. Well, I don't see enough women in it. Now, there's women in those professions, yes, but a lot of girls don't see.
Hmm.
don't have in their community women to mentor them through that kind of thing. And so back to Gina Davis, and she says this about Hollywood, if we can't see it, we can't become it. In movies, well, movies are depicted or representative of real life. And so hopes and dreams get squashed, back to your point, because girls don't see other women doing those things they want to do. Or if they do, they don't know how to connect with them and to say, hey, can you mentor me? Hey, can you sponsor me within the organization on the clear path, not only to climb the ladder, but to get the role that you want? And it could be a lateral move. But those sponsors are so important as you get older, but it's also in your life. I mean, you can have a mentor when you're in grade school, when you're in high school, but they look differently. The mentor in grade school could be the high school girl coming over to tutor you in math or, giving you some volleyball tips so you can make the volleyball team kind of a thing. So if you can surround yourself with other girls, other women that can help empower you and teach you a thing or two, that's going to help close that gender and dream gap. And so, girls say, well, I can't do it if they don't see it, if they don't know how to get there. So their dream doesn't become a reality. It stays a dream. And that really hurts my heart.
It really does. And what's interesting to me about that is that sometimes you end up in a situation where something that a girl who could have found the cure for cancer ends up not even going into science or somehow maneuvers away from it. And so, this notion of mentoring, this notion of helping others, it's very community oriented, and yay for that. And yet, some of these kids are not going to have that. They're going to get the messages that they shouldn't even bother trying. And so, I'm going to keep coming back to the dolls because seeing a doll that represents what you look like, perhaps, or represents what you want to do, perhaps, and being able to sort of access that again, that imagination, that what if, that's got to have some sort of lasting impact. So I guess the question I have for you with this diverse line of dolls, starting them in 3+, as you put it, three plus years old, what is your thought about the lasting impact of toys and games that are rooted in STEAM for a child's development and really the impact they might make on their whole lives?
Well, toys and purpose, right? Dolls with a purpose. And then also, I wanted the dolls to look like the girl. Hey, that looks like me. So I want Tyreka the Techie, for example. And I love fashion. Don't like to shop, but I love fashion. And I thought I need to have fashion in the dolls. So they have sparkly eyes, different colors, sparkly eyes. They have, their traditional, the Scylla, the scientist, has her traditional lab coat, but she has this cute bloomer shorts on and a great top with ruffles. And they each have a metallic colored shoe. So it's very important to incorporate fashion, not only because, no, they look good, fashion, but with fashion, I'm more courageous. I feel more confident. If I feel like I look good, I'll present myself better into this world. And so instilling that confidence to then give the girls courage and so on to build on that 5 pillar methodology that I call superpowers for girls to take risks in their lives was really important to me. And so I don't think you would think I would have said fashion as the answer, but it's a great foundation
Hmm.
to make yourself feel good. The second thing about feeling good is philanthropy. So philanthropy is not only near and dear to my heart, but I do partner with philanthropic organizations, Lurie's Hospital, Encourage Kids Foundation, and give sets of dolls to kids that are not feeling well, kids that are underprivileged, etc., because those communities need the dolls the most.
Mm. I love that. And what's interesting as I'm listening to you, I'm going, yes, 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 that's wonderful. And at the same time, like you said, you wouldn't think fashion would be the thing I'd answer, but again, it's meeting people where they are. And if girls of a certain age are interested in fashion, having the dolls be fashion oriented or fashion plates as part of who they are. The dolls themselves, I'm a scientist, I'm an artist, I'm a mathematician, I'm in tech. And I also like to have cute pants or a cute skirt
Mhm.
or nice, I love sparkly. I personally, Izolda, love sparkly shoes. So as you say that, I'm like, yes, I would want sparkly shoes. Absolutely, I'd want sparkly shoes. It does not take anything away from the fact that I worked at NASA for 20 years or the fact that I write books or whatever else I do. And so that's something that inclusivity that we're talking about ends up being about more than your career. It ends up being about a lot of different things that you as a woman, as a girl might love. So talk to me, if you would, about what message you really want to give to someone. Like, I know I'm going to meet you at Toy Fair and I can't wait to do that. And Toy Fair's coming up really soon. But you're going to Toy Fair, you're going to be talking to people from all walks of life at companies, people who are coming in as consumers. What's the message you want to give them about the dolls and what they can do for girls and women in their lives?
The dolls are transformational. They not only expose the dolls, they not only expose kids from a young age to the STEAM industries, but they give them those superpowers to excel in life. So it's this building block foundation that starts at such a young, impressionable, age that is so important to me is to nip it in the bud when girls are young, not waiting till high school when they have started forming their own opinions and some of their imperfections, right? They're aware of their imperfections. We all have imperfections. And so it's really, really important that those imperfections get countered with each girl's superpower.
Mm.
And they're all unique. Some may be outgoing, some may be great at cheerleading, some may be ready for the WNBA. And to champion those inner empowerment superpowers from a young age to build a foundation so girls can be fearless. Fearless in whatever they do and whatever they aspire to do.
And you know what's interesting, and I keep saying that because I'm so fascinated by this entire topic, is that the word that kept popping up as I was listening to what you were saying was resilient, right? There are always going to be messages that we get as girls and women that we can't or that we shouldn't or that it's bad or that it's not interesting or whatever, as opposed to, you know what? This is what I've chosen. This is what I'm going to pursue. I want to be a writer. I want to be a scientist. I want to be involved in technology. So there's something about, to me, about starting at a young age to go, okay, you're going to get these messages that you shouldn't or that you can't. Here are the strategies, age appropriate, for how to counter that. So if you wouldn't mind, what are your thoughts on that part of the psychology of not just the empowering piece, but the piece that kind of makes you go, you're getting these messages, and here's how to reflect them back and not let them in as something that will keep you from following your dreams.
Yeah, I love that word resiliency. And I use that one a lot because you do have to let things roll off your back. But how do you do that?
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so it's so important, just like you said, no matter what gamut of life. And you're reminding me of a story of a college girl that I coached and worked with. And she said, I'm in my science class and I gave my presentation. And this was 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I was 2023. And the professor said, that was pretty good. I didn't think you'd do that so well being a girl. And
No.
very good university. Very good university. If I said it out loud, we all would say, you've heard of it. And I was shocked. And
Yeah.
this beautiful, smart young woman was questioning her major, was questioning her superpowers. And so I can tell you now, she went for the job of her dreams and she got in.
Yes.
And amazing. And she's an amazing young girl, but all that stuff got rocked and it
Mm-hmm.
broke my heart. And so I worked with her and I know her parents do too, to really instill that resiliency because she's going to get another curveball. We
Mm-hmm.
all do. in terms of that. We have to tap into that resiliency and not give up, because I think resiliency and empowerment go hand in hand. Not entitlement, but empowerment
Hmm.
and resiliency go hand in hand.
Absolutely. And I love that story that she said, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway, and did it anyway, which is phenomenal. But let me ask you, I know we have to I could keep you for another 6 hours because I have so many other questions, but I know we have to stop in a minute. But I do want to get your thoughts. As someone who worked in tech, what do you think, especially around women entering the workforce? What do you think tech companies, since tech is you've done a lot of tech, what do you think they can do to ensure that they're providing those meaningful mentorship opportunities for young women who are entering the field?
Aligning the women with the right mentors. Now, you have to find your own sponsor. The company doesn't find one for you. That's your job once you get in the company and if you choose to stay. But mentors, they can be inside an organization, outside of an organization. But the key is to find the right mentor, and that could mean multiple mentors.
Mm-hmm.
So in tech, I had a few. One that helped me with my task at hand, the product that I represented, how to license it, how to sell it, come up with the sales pitch, etc. And then I also had, internal folks, how do you work in an orchestrated team where I'm selling this one product, but in tech there's 5 other products you need for it to work right. So how do you work with your counterparts? And you're all going for the same share of pie,
Mm-hmm.
share of wallet
Mm-hmm.
that your customer has to offer if you earn and win the business. How do you work with them amicably, strategically, not only for yourself, but also keeping your customers' needs front and center? So actually starting with that, right? The customer's needs, exceeding their expectations, giving them the right service, and then also working in the orchestration of, okay, how can I do right by my customer? But how am I going to, and that is by doing right by my team. So giving the customer what they want, putting your needs aside, but still working in that orchestrated environment, community to deliver what the customer expects of you. And so having multiple mentors is key. Keeping an open mind, getting to know other people that aren't like-minded as you to learn. Because in technology, not only is it a lot of parts that make technology work, but it's a lot of divisions within technology, within the corporation, the tech company, and the facets that you have to learn. And they are ever changing. Think about all the algorithms that change. If you're on
Sure.
Instagram, how do I get my posts and likes and more people to like my posts? I said that backwards. The algorithms are always changing. Well, they are internally too within technology. And so being
Sure.
able to be resilient, to pivot, and to constantly keep it open-minded, always be learning.
Yes. It's like Glengarry Glen Ross, always be
Yes.
closing, but it's always be, I say the same thing, always be learning. Absolutely. Sometimes you win, sometimes you learn. I love that quote. I love that you said that because that notion to me of constantly being curious and constantly seeing and asking what if is so important. Gayle, I am so really glad that we had this chat. Before we end, I know that there are going to be people who want to know more about you and the work that you're doing. I have just a couple more questions that I ask everybody who comes on the show. But the first question of these three that I have to ask you is if somebody wants to find you and find more about the Theodora dolls and also you and the work that you're doing in coaching, how do they do it?
You can find me at theodoragirls.com. So that's Theodora girls.com. And then also on Instagram _ I am Theodora.
Fabulous. I will put those in the show notes. I like to ask people too, because we both know people learn differently. So now you've heard it if you've listened to this show. And I will put it in the show notes so you can have a direct link. And then
Oh, and I'd be remiss not to mention my other website, gaylekeller.org as
aha,
well.
perfect. So I'll need that link and I'll put that in the show notes And that way, if you're listening to this and you want to know more about Gayle and the work that she's doing empowering women and girls, as well as the Theodora dolls and the work that they're doing to empower women and girls, that would be great. Because I don't think you need to be a young girl to have a Theodora doll. I think you can be any age and have one. I collect figurines like Princess Leia and figurines like that. So I would be all about a Theodora doll, and I am nowhere near 3+ years old. Anyway, Gayle, the last two questions are this. The first one is, what is it that gets you up in the morning? And I don't mean your alarm.
My daughters, striving to be as good of a mom as I can be, but also a good example. Not every day is a great day. In the winter, I'd rather stay in bed than get out into the cold. But,
Sure.
you know, I have to be a good role model. And so my girls get me out of bed, and being so excited to see life in the world through their eyes and how they're learning, their curiosity makes it all worthwhile.
That's awesome. I love that. And yes, you're in Chicago, you said, so I'm sure the winter's freezing. I grew up in Detroit, and yes, it is definitely cold in the Midwest. And Gayle, this is our last question that I ask everybody who comes on the show. And it's a silly question, but I find that it yields some very profound answers. And the question is this: if you had an airplane, environmentally friendly, of course, that could skywrite anything for the whole world to see, what would you say?
Resilience. Be resilient.
Well, there you go. One of my favorite words. Awesome, Gayle. Thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Great to meet you, and thanks for your time.
Ah, this was so fun. If you've listened to this episode, you know you need to go find out more about Gayle Keller and the work she's doing to empower women and girls. And you know what? To empower the people who want to support women and girls as well, because nobody does this alone. I am Izolda Trachtenberg for the Your Creative Mind podcast, reminding you, as always, to be bold, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Izolda Trachtenberg and is copyright 2025. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope.